Hello there, beautiful souls! Welcome or welcome back to the Living Simply channel. In this Occult Symbols podcast, I like to choose different spiritual and esoteric symbols around the world and go in depth into their meaning, as well as the underlying lessons and teachings we can learn from it. Today, I decided to break down the Ouroboros, a symbol that has long fascinated me as a child and that you probably saw in some shape or form. It is also the symbol I chose as the logo of a new project I'm launching on the 2nd of February called Elementuum. This will be a magical herbs and goods shop where I handpick products that aim to help you on your spiritual journey. I am so excited about this new project, so if you're curious to learn more about this, please make sure to check out my new Instagram page, elementuum.shop. I will leave a link in the description box down below. So grab yourself a cup of tea, kick back and relax as I go through the different concepts related to the Ouroboros. Let's start with its origin and use around the world. The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol that depicts a serpent or dragon eating his own tail in a circular form. From China to Egypt and even Aztec or Norse mythology, this symbol has many variants of it all over the globe. It was especially popularized and used by Greek magicians, and then in Gnosticism, Hermeticism, and Alchemy. Sometimes the symbol is drawn with a dragon or winged serpent, but it's usually a serpent-like figure. And in all religions, the serpent represents chaos. This is the beginning and the end, as well as major primordial concepts. A few examples of this would include the devil in the Garden of Eden, the Leviathan, or even the Mesopotamian goddess Tiamat, who is a sea serpent that stands for primordial chaos and potentiality. And we will be diving deeper into this aspect of the symbol in the upcoming minutes. But one of the first Ouroboros depictions is in the enigmatic Book of the Netherworld, which is an ancient Egyptian funerary text found in the tomb of Tutankhamun in the 40th century before Christ. And this text is a two-part story inscribed on the second shrine of the sarcophagus of Tutankhamun, and it speaks of the creation and rebirth of the sun. This text is broken into different sections. One of the most famous ones is the iconic Book of the Dead, but the most memorable thing about the Book of the Netherworld is its depiction of the Ouroboros, who represented the unification of the two major Egyptian gods at the time, which are Ra and Osiris. Ra, similarly to Horus, was believed to be the ruler and creator of the manifested world, so the sky and the earth and anything that dwells in between. Then Osiris is another important Egyptian deity who symbolized death, resurrection, and the underworld. This is like a Pluto figure. And I spoke about these two gods in one of my previous podcast videos where I share what the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra mean, so make sure to check it out if you love some Kemetic mythology and spirituality like I do. But in a nutshell, the first Ouroboros represented the cycles of life and death combined. To go back to the Book of the Netherworld, and for the Egyptians, the Ouroboros also symbolized the manifestation of the snake god Mehen. This is a protective deity who is supposed to be a snake coiled around the sun god Ra during his journey through the night. Later on, the Ouroboros was used in Egyptian spiritual and magical traditions, and it represented the formless disorder that surrounds the orderly world, as well as the periodic and cyclic nature of the sun throughout the year. Another interesting mythological reference to this symbol is found in Norse mythology. So the Ouroboros figure appears as the serpent called Jormungandr, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and he is actually the child of the god of mischief, Loki. And he was believed to be a serpent that grew so big that he encircled the world and bit his own tail with his mouth. So Jormungandr, also called Midgard serpent or the world serpent, encircles the great ocean that surrounds Midgard, or Earth. And it is believed that the day the serpent will release its own tail will be the end of days, also known as Ragnarok to the Northerners, and this is going to be the beginning of the end, if you will. In the Eddic poem called Voluspa, Ragnarok will begin with violent waves and unrest in the sea due to the snake letting go of its tail. So flood will come to the land and the infamous god Thor will kill Jormungandr, but he will have to sacrifice his own life for it. It is actually said that he will fall dead after walking 9 paces, having been poisoned by the serpent's deadly venom. So the 9 paces here is highly symbolic. It's the number of endings and new beginnings. So fear not, this death is not the end, it is actually the dawn of a new earth. To learn more about numerology, by the way, feel free to watch my Numerology 101 video. A little bonus on the Norse legends that mention the Ouroboros: the king Herod gives a lindworm to his daughter, but years later it grows into a gigantic snake that encircles his child and bites its own tail. So there goes Ragnar Lodbrok, and I know you know who that is, and like this video, by the way, if you're a fan of Vikings like I am. But anyway, Ragnar, which is a very common hero in Norse mythology, achieves to slay it and marries the daughter. And the son he will later have with another woman, but after this story unfolds, is going to be born with a white snake depicted in one of his eyes. So he names him Sigurd, Snake in the Eye. This is something that you will see in Vikings if you watch the TV show, and a story that is worth mentioning when we speak about the Ouroboros because it gives context. You're probably wondering, okay, that's very interesting, Fatih, but what does the Ouroboros actually mean? Well, let's take a look at how Gnostics, alchemists, and Western mystics view this symbol. For those who don't know about Gnosticism, this is basically a group of people who prefer to reach God through personal spiritual knowledge, also known as gnosis, rather than choosing the orthodox and dogmatic teachings and traditions set by the elders. So Gnostics are not part of a religion per se, but rather they're a type of relationship with the divine, with many faiths and currents existing within the realm of Gnosticism. As an example, I am a Gnostic in my way of approaching religion and spirituality, but if you asked me, I would feel closer to a perennialist or a Sufi without actually labeling myself a Gnostic. So anyways, in this branch of belief and spiritual journeying called Gnosticism, the Ouroboros represents eternity, the transmigration of souls, rebirth, as well as the cyclic nature of life and death. From late Middle Ages until the Renaissance, the Ouroboros was mentioned more and more in many alchemical texts, and this symbol was oftentimes used with the Hebrew words hen topan, which translate to the all is one. And it was also oftentimes linked with the duality of life, especially the life and death process. In this regard, you can see how the link with Ra and Osiris makes absolute sense. Alchemical manuscripts and magical grimoires oftentimes used the Ouroboros and added other symbols. Usually it would be the sun, the moon, and Mercury. And the reason for using the sun and the moon is that the sun represents our divine masculine, our conscious mind, as well as the active yang polarity, while the moon represents the divine feminine, the unconscious, as well as the receptive yin polarity. And Mercury, in both astrology and alchemy, is a genderless fluid energy, so it completes the Ouroboros triad and forms what we call life. And by the way, something very fascinating to keep in mind if you're diving into spiritual symbols is this. Divine polarities and sexual alchemy, so sun and moon, are at the heart and center of all spiritual religions, cults, and symbols. Life and death, day and night, man and woman, this fascinated us as a humanity for centuries. This is the fabric of life itself. So when you break down any symbol, at the core of it, you will find an underlying link to these concepts. If you're curious about what I'm speaking about here, please feel free to watch my video, Healing the Divine Masculine and Divine Feminine, and also the Occult podcast episode related to the yin-yang symbol, which is very, very important. It's a symbol that I really highly resonate with. Anyways, a very beautiful image of the Ouroboros I felt compelled to share with you, and one that actually blew me away with awe when I first saw it a couple of years ago, and one that you can actually use in your magical practice and spiritual development, is called the Chrysopoeia of Cleopatra. And it is linked with the legendary magnum opus or philosopher's stone of the alchemists. So this is actually a guidebook on how you can see the Ouroboros as a tool for reaching that philosopher's stone or goal that all alchemists, all seekers have in mind. According to one of my biggest inspirations, Carl Jung, I'm quoting, "The alchemists, who in their own way knew more about the nature of the individuation process than we moderns do, expressed this paradox through the symbol of the Ouroboros, the snake that eats his own tail. The Ouroboros has been said to have a meaning of infinity or wholeness. In the age-old image of the Ouroboros lies the thought of devouring oneself and turning oneself into a circulatory process. For it was clear to the more astute alchemists that the prima materia of the art was man himself. The Ouroboros is a dramatic symbol for the integration and assimilation of the opposite, of the shadow. This feedback process is at the same time a symbol of immortality, since it is said of the Ouroboros that he slays himself and brings himself to life, fertilizes himself, and gives birth to himself. He symbolizes the one who proceeds from the clash of opposites, and he, therefore, constitutes the secret of the prima materia, which unquestionably stems from man's unconscious." In other words, the Ouroboros is that everlasting process of integration of the opposites. This is a representation of our reality. Like a continuum, life and death, Ra and Osiris, sun and moon, eat off each other. Through darkness, we can emerge into the light, and from the light, we can discover the shadows. Just like a baby grows old, but there is no separation, when can we tell when life is happening and when death is actually doing its work? So as I was researching this video, I discovered that there is a very major Gnostic text written in 1700 that I never read before, but that describes the Ouroboros as a 12-part dragon surrounding the world. As an astrologer and passionate numerology enthusiast, I believe these 12 segments are the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 stages of human consciousness. I'm very curious to read the book in the upcoming months and further confirm or deny this theory, but I would not be surprised at all since number 12 and zodiac concepts are all mentioned all throughout religions because they are, at their core, the tools we have to comprehend things beyond our comprehension. In fact, the ancients were not idiots. They did not believe that an actual snake encircles the world. At least not the enlightened ones, not the mystics, the seekers, the scientists, the alchemists. That image was just the only thing that resembled the energy of what encircles the world, and the best way to explain it to the vast majority of people who can never and will never experience it from their own point of view. The same goes for everything, astrology too. Capricorn is not an actual sea goat, Scorpio is not a phoenix, and Cancer is definitely not a crab. Same goes for planets. Venus is not a woman, and Mars is not a bloodthirsty, fighty god. But that's how the energy feels. And you see, when a primordial energy or concept travels through the planes of existence, it has to manifest in some way, shape, or form. And us humans, in order to understand things, We use something called storytelling. That's how we do things. We love heroes, we love archetypes and actual figures and dolls to look at. We love movies, stories, drama. To make the symbols and energies work for us, we give them shape and breathe life into them. But these symbols and energies are not the shape itself. They're just the depiction of it. They're an explanation of it. This is something I really wanted to point out again because it's a realization that has to be done if you are venturing into the unknown territories of spiritual and esoteric symbols, occult studies, and self-initiation in general. Anyways, let's circle back to the Ouroboros, and pun definitely intended. As I was doing my research on this symbol to prepare the video for you guys, I came across some aspects of it that I didn't consider before, which proves to me how important it is to share sacred knowledge on my channel. As I teach and share information, I am learning and growing my own knowledge as well. It's like an energetic exchange with the universe, and this is something that we must all remember. If you want to receive, give. You'll be surprised how quick you receive if you just put your heart and mind into it. So as I was writing this episode, I stumbled across a video by Damien Eccles, which is one of my favorite people to listen to when it comes to high magic, ceremonial magic, and Western esotericism, if I may call it this way. And in this video that I found, he mentioned how, in his opinion, the Ouroboros is the Leviathan mentioned in the Bible, and the serpent of the abyss mentioned by the Golden Dawn and the Thelemite figure Aleister Crowley. A little side note for a special person listening, I still haven't dived into Thelema yet, but it's something I am super excited to do at some point, as I have read about Thelema, from other sources, but never from an actual Thelemite or expert, explaining the core principles of this magical path. So, if you guys have any book recommendations for me, I'd love to hear it. Drop them down in the comment section down below. But moving on, in this context, the Ouroboros also represents the cycles of karma. In India, Gautama Buddha found enlightenment and found Buddhism as a way to break the cycles of suffering, or karma. So Buddha, who was an ascended master, actually transcended the Ouroboros and broke the never-ending cycles of life and death through nirvana, through enlightenment, and his work. So long story short, until we transcend the Ouroboros, or what the biblical traditions call the Leviathan, he will constantly eat us up, and not in the way we want to be eaten. So he'll swallow us whole, only to spit up again, to spit us up. A little like if we're on a video game and we keep repeating the same 12 levels, although we pass them with flying scores. Like you would be at the final boss level stage, you think you would go to the 13th level, but when you win, you're back at square zero, like you're back where you started. And the moment we eat the Ouroboros, or Leviathan, so to speak, we transcend the bonds of time and space. After moving beyond Leviathan, we can actually break the cycles of suffering. Listen, the Ouroboros, the Leviathan or Great Serpent, however you want to call it, is not some monster outside of yourself, encircling the world, waiting for the end of days to break all hell loose, or waiting to swallow you whole. This is not the case. It's actually more like a program within you. This is like an antivirus that prevents people from entering certain stages, certain levels, certain layers. It's what's keeping you in these cycles of incarnation. And let me make it clear, not many of us will transcend the Leviathan. It's not our path. Not everyone is destined to go beyond the veil or to cross the abyss. That's not the goal of everyone, but especially even if it is the goal of some of us, it is not always possible. Before we get our feet way too deep into these oceans, I'm gonna circle back to the Enso, which is a sacred symbol often referred to as the circle of enlightenment in Zen Buddhism or the Buddhist Ouroboros. So using black paint and a brush, the Buddhist practitioner would draw this symbol, allowing the mind, the spirit, and the body to join and express themselves, either through drawing an open circle or through a complete circle. And the meaning of this Enso symbol is that of beauty and imperfection, oneness, and also entering meditative states and enlightenment. From the white canvas emerges a form. From emptiness, a gate is opened. The void is filled, and both realities, so non-existence and existence, both coexist. They collide and they dance together. And if you're curious about what the circle shape means in itself, the first occult podcast video I made on this channel was dedicated to the square, the triangle, and the circle. So make sure to check it out. So let's resume everything we saw today, shall we? The Ouroboros is a powerful symbol that reminds us of the cyclic nature of the universe, of our psyche, and of ourselves. This is how life and death, active and passive polarities, feed off each other. This is the pattern of life itself and the inherent divine program of creation. So it is very important to seek ways to connect to our oneness, to our true divinity, and the Ouroboros can be a very powerful tool if we use it in this manner. If you're open to this, please make sure to integrate it into your craft, either through meditating on this symbol, looking at some of the pictures of a Ouroboros and contemplating its meaning, how it resonates, how it makes you feel. You can also wear it as jewelry, or draw it in symbols and sigils that you can wear. You can put it in your bag, on your shoes, under your feet, in a little paper in your pocket. You can try very different ways of holding the Ouroboros within you. You can even tattoo it on your body if you're into tattoos and all of that. But anyways, what I mean here is that the more access you have to this symbol, the more your subconscious or unconscious mind is going to access that part of you that is linked to the Ouroboros. So I highly recommend experimenting with the Ouroboros. Be careful how you use this symbol. It is a very potent one. So always make sure to stay open, have a good intention in your heart, and I am sure that the things you're gonna discover within you and within this powerful symbol are gonna surprise you. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Comment down below the symbol you'd love me to review next. Do not forget to subscribe, to like, and share this video so that this community keeps growing and evolving every day. I'm sending you blessings from the heart, and I will be seeing you next time. Bye bye.